What is going on, guys? John here from John's Fishing Channel. Thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to be talking just a little bit about fishing from a dock and being able to, just fish from a dock. A lot of people don't have the opportunity all the time to go out in a boat, have a float tube, a kayak, a canoe. I'm also using a wireless mic for the first time ever, so if you're wondering why the audio is so good or so bad, it's because it's my first time ever using this wireless mic. I have a wireless receiver right here, or I guess this is a wireless transmitter. The wireless receiver is on the camera. So basically, fishing off a dock is similar to fishing from a boat, fishing from shore, fishing from a kayak, a canoe, float tube, whatever you really want to fish. The only difference is you're in one spot, you're stationary, you're fishing a predetermined stretch of water that you can really only cover as far as you can cast. But there's a lot of opportunities, for you to go down to your local river, your local lake, and just go out there and cast and catch stuff. I hope this volume is working really good. It's really windy out here, so why I'm actually using the wireless mic. And again, I've never used it, so this could be a crapshoot. I hope it works. So that I'll just record the audio over again for you guys, and it'll be a little bit more boring. But when you're fishing off a dock, I'm going to start with a rubber worm. I'm also going to try a rubber frog. I'm going to try a spinnerbait, and I'm also going to try a Rapala that I have over there, perch imitation up in northern Wisconsin. I'm also going to do a tackle box video for you guys. Right there, there's a fish. So when you're fishing off a dock, one thing that you want to do, is throw out to the middle of the lake. Go ahead, you want to really cover all the water really good. If you kind of find a spot where you caught a fish, I cast it out to the middle there and caught a fish. After I get this fish in, I'm going to want to go ahead, a nice little guy, and cast it kind of right back out to where I caught that one, because there might be a whole school of fish just sitting out there feeding. Little fish, probably under a year old, under a pound, probably under about 3/4 of a pound. Go ahead and let them go. But like I said, fishing off the dock, great way for you just to kind of go out, do a little fishing. It's great for kids. It's a great family, exercise. If you have a couple little kids that are new to fishing, you might not necessarily want to take them out in the boat the first time. You could just go ahead and bring them out to the dock, get some worms, some bobbers, some leeches. That's a really, really effective way to catch panfish off the dock. You're going to catch bass. On this lake in particular, there's a lot of open water out in front of me. I have some weeds off to the left of me on the shore, some weeds off to the right of me on the shore. But for the most part, I'm just going to be fishing pretty deep. Throw it out there, bring it back, throw it out there, bring it back, and hope you catch something. I'm trying to keep my back to the wind and face you guys so the mic doesn't pick up any of that wind. I had a really, really good fishing episode that I recorded rather, and the wind kind of ruined it because the mic on my camera is really it doesn't have any sort of wind protection built into it. So all you can hear is something like this, and it is really just a little kind of frustrating to me. Off of the dock, you do want to go through a lot of baits. I did happen to catch a fish, on the first cast with a rubber worm here. So that tells me, that they're eating rubber worms. But if I wouldn't have caught anything for 10 to 15 minutes, I would definitely be switching up my lure, which I'm going to do right now. All right, now I'm switching to a Rapala. It's a perch imitation Rapala. There's a couple different ways that we're going to fish this. We're going to cast it out. We're going to retrieve it nice and slow. It's got a lot of treble hooks on there. So I have my pliers with me so that I better not drop this transmitter in the water. It's really expensive for the wireless mic. We're going to fish this back nice and slow, and we're going to kind of jerk it a little bit so that it looks like it's swimming a little funny, and try to trick those fish into eating this. So, and again, when you're fishing on the dock, go ahead, cast everywhere that you can. Leave no stretch of water unfished, because you never know where you're going to catch a fish, where they're going to be, where you might find them. They can kind of be all over the place. A great spot for bass is actually under docks, man-made objects. And I've actually caught a lot of bass under this dock standing on it. It's kind of cool, just to stand here and catch bass where you're fishing. Taking this Rapala back, I'm slowly reeling it and giving it just a little jerk to kind of give it that imitation of a hurt minnow. And this perch bait is usually pretty effective for largemouth bass. Smaller perch are just delicious food and bait for these bass, so they will Usually they'll come right after this. And I got a couple different things, you know, I can go side to side, I can go up, I can go down and up, I can go to one side, I can bring it back to the other side. There's really a lot of options for working these Rapalas. And when you buy a new Rapala, it usually comes with instructions on, you know, how to work the bait, where you want to fish it, what type of lure it is, what it's going to do, and it kind of explains to you a little bit. And you can always go online. These days, it's kind of funny about a brand new GoPro, which I use and have been using, and I'm still learning how to use effectively for you guys. But you know, they want me to go online to download the user manual. It didn't come with a user manual, which is, I think, is a new trend for companies, just to put it online. You know, it's a lot cheaper, it's environmentally friendly, you save paper. And you know, using something like a GoPro, they're automatically assuming, you know, that I have a computer. I'm going to plug this into my computer and use it for video. You know, so I'm out here fishing this Rapala, and I haven't really even had a bite yet. So you know, if I wasn't making this video, I'd fish it for about another 5 to 10 minutes. You know, but since we're kind of just going through lures here and talking about stuff, I'm going to go ahead and switch it up. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and use a spinner bait now, which is one of my favorite baits to fish off a dock or from shore, simply because of the amount of water. You can cast it really far. It's a heavy lure. You can throw it, you know, halfway across this part of the lake right here. Let it go out there, let it sink down for 5 to 10 seconds, and then slowly start working it back. But you can cover a lot of water with spinner baits, you know, and you're going to kind of rule out a couple of those smaller fish that might be going for your bait. If you're catching smaller fish, switch to something bigger. And this is something that you can cast anywhere. You can cast it right next to shore, you can cast it deep, you can cast it next to the weeds. You know, you can cast it really anywhere, and it's going to be pretty effective if the fish see it and they're biting. And it's really good for weeds. You know, a spinner bait, as long as you're not fishing, you know, excessive weeds, really super deep weeds, heavy weeds. You know, there's a couple weed strands out there. This spinner bait is actually going to go through them pretty good. You know, go right through. Most of the weeds are on the bottom. You know, if there's one or two weeds that grow higher than all the other ones, the spinner bait's going to go right through those with really no problem. It's not going to pick up a lot of weeds, and that's it's really kind of a nice way to fish if there's a lot of underwater weeds. I was sitting in the restaurant earlier today talking with one of the older locals, you know, kind of fishes around here on occasion, and he had told me, well, you know, you can't catch them if your line's not in the water. And I was like, that is precisely what I tell people. So speaking of which, you know, I got to take off, I got to get out there, I've got fish to catch. And it was kind of funny because I was in there for about 10 minutes eating breakfast before I went back out and went fishing. I've been doing a lot of fishing, I've seen a lot of fish. But it's been really exciting. And one of the most effective baits that I've been using thus far on this trip has been rubber worms. You know, they're pretty realistic in imitation, so they work really well for catching fish. Oh, big fish just ate something right over there. So off to the weeds to my right here, I just saw a bass kind of take down something over there in the weeds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch to a topwater frog, weed this frog, and I'm going to go ahead and start throwing it over there. And that's something that you want to do. You know, you want to always be observing what's kind of going on in the environment around you. So you know, if I didn't see a fish in the weeds over there, I wouldn't go get a rubber frog. But since I've seen a fish come up, eat something in the weeds, I know that there's the opportunity there for me to go over and catch a fish in those weeds. So I'm going to get a weedless rubber frog and go ahead and fish that. And if you're not catching anything, don't be afraid to mix it up. You know, don't sit here and use the same lure time after time after time after time, you know, for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, however long you're going to go out fishing. And if you're not catching anything, switch it up, you know. Even if you don't think you know what they're biting, just switch to whatever you've got in your tackle box. You know, you've got a variety of lures in there. Woo! Woo! That was a nice one. Oh man. Oh, see? You know, I wouldn't have missed that fish if I wouldn't have put on a frog. If I wouldn't have seen that fish come out of the water and eat something over there. That was very aggressive strike. He's hungry. There's a chance that if he didn't actually feel the hook of this frog, he might come back. My phone's ringing here. Hope this isn't messing with the... Go ahead, I have to take that later. Hope that doesn't mess up the transmission of my wireless mic. you know, when you get a big strike like that, you want to throw it right back in there to where he was, you know. I'm also going to work the shoreline, just kind of back the weeds all the way back to me that I can. God, that was a nice strike. That was a good fish for this lake. Huh. You know, but if you see fish eating something, oh, woo! Come on, you're coming out of there. God darn, I keep missing. These weeds are just far enough away where that they're hitting it, they're taking it down, and they're kind of hooking me on weeds and they're getting off. If it was about 10 to 15 feet closer, I probably would have got both those fish. You know, it's interesting to me that these rubber frogs, they don't really work out of the weeds. You know, the fish are smart enough to be like, that's not a frog. But once you get them on top of that weed and they can just see bits and pieces of it, they really will just hammer it. But once you get it out of the weeds, it seems like it's not really that effective. Crap, I'm in a tree. Alrighty, so that was exciting. I'm gonna go ahead and switch back to a rubber worm here, try to catch a few more fish, and hopefully, you know, we can pull in a few fish at the end of this video. So I was basically just kind of bobbing my line up and down off the dock with the GoPro, trying to get a fish strike captured on my GoPro underwater. And this little guy came and got it right as I took my camera out of the water. That's funny. So rubber worms are working pretty good. Another, you know, 1 pound bass, about a year old. Go ahead and let him go. See if we can get that again. Go ahead and throw my rubber worm out here just a couple more times. Not like that, right into the weeds. And from there, I was gonna head over to another dock too and just kind of show you guys different dock, different area, different water, kind of, you know, just a little something like that. So, see if we can get a few more fish here on a rubber worm, which I'm almost positive that we probably can. You know, one little indication too that I also use is there's kind of like a swarm of water bugs out here. You know, whenever something comes swimming up underneath them, like a fish or my lure or anything, they scatter. So that's, you can kind of use that as an indication that maybe there might be a fish down there if you kind of see them flying around going nuts. But you know, that's a good way to use the nature, if you will, as kind of like a natural fish indicator. And they're definitely out there. You know, there are ways and signs and things that you can kind of read what's going on in the water to help you catch the fish that you're looking for. Kind of like how I just saw some fish over there and I threw some rubber frogs over there and they immediately started eating them because they were eating stuff on the top water. You know, if they weren't there doing that, you would never really know that. So it's some good indications. A lot of times you'll see big muskie chasing sunfish and other smaller fish through the water, and they're literally, a sunfish will come up sideways and skim across the water like this running from a muskie. So, you know, what we want to do is go ahead and cast over to that area and hopefully catch that fish that's eating stuff. You know, I think this worm actually may be done. Well, not completely done. I'm just going to rip the front off of it and use the back that still hasn't been all chewed up and ripped off. So let's see if that makes any difference. Presentation, you know, you do have to give fish a type of bait. You got to make it look as if something that they would want to eat, or you want to get their natural instincts kicking in, you know, to automatically just strike it because they think it's food, they're hungry, they're going to eat it. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Again, you know, just fish from a dock, reel it up, cast it out, reel it up, cast it out. It's pretty much going to be our technique here. And hopefully, he catches you a fish. You know, it always is kind of a little disappointing and kind of a bummer to come right out, you know, first cast, catch a fish, and then not really catch anything right after that. It's kind of like you come out, you get your expectations high, you get all excited, and then nothing happens. And one really cool thing about this clear water is that, you know, I can let my bait sit on the bottom and I can kind of work it, and not only can I see a fish come get it if they decide to, but I can also see how my bait is working in the water. You know, I can see how that worm is going to be presented and swim along to those fish. And as long as the presentation of your bait looks fine here, you know it's going to be good out there. It really is frustrating to come out and catch a fish on the first cast and then not catch anything else. Well, I mean, I caught 2, but I should be happy. I'm very happy for myself. Let's go with the distance here, see if we can get one over there. That's about as far as I can cast it, and that was about 70 feet with this lure and this rod setup, which is really a good cast. There we go. All right, so I just had a bite, and what that decided to do was actually cool. I saw it. He grabbed onto the worm and ripped it right off my hook. He grabbed the worm and not the hook. Which then will give me the opportunity to put on a fresh worm. Fresh rubber worm. But I think that could be kind of important. That was really neat to watch him take that. Alright, let's go try another spot. Alright guys, so I just wanted to also kind of talk, this is the other dock that I'll be fishing today, but it's really shallow here, it's really weedy. What we're going to have to do is actually cast out past the weeds and then fish back in. So this is just kind of a great example of the exact opposite type of water from a dock that I was just fishing. But so hopefully, you know, I'm going to wrap up the video here quick, but I'm going to just throw maybe a dozen casts out here and see if I hook anything. But you know, just kind of give you an idea and talk to you a little bit about trying to fish through a dock that's in a lot of weeds in shallow water. So using the rubber worm again, and you know, I'm going to cast this out probably about 10 feet past the lily pads and the weeds that are out here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let it sink down to the bottom. I'm going to keep my rod tip up really high so I can keep my line up out of the weeds. So if I do happen to hook a fish out there, you know, I can set the hook, I can get the hook into his mouth, and I'm not going to get stuck in these lily pads right here. So, which I just did. You know, but that's kind of the extent. You know, another really good lure to use over here would be a rubber frog through all these weeds, but I actually lost my rubber frog on the last lake at the last dock after I was done filming. I was fishing for about 10 minutes. I had a bass come in and he just took my lure right off. So I don't think he was that big. I just think he was very, very feisty. So it was, you know, it wasn't like a fantastic fish that I missed or anything. You know, I'm using the shaky head worm method here too. You know, and I'm just kind of bringing them back to the weeds. Oh, there we go. Come on. Oh, come on. Oh. You know, one of the most difficult challenges of catching fish in weeds off the dock and anywhere is hooking that fish and landing him. You know, it can be extremely difficult. It can be really hard to do simply because, you know, fish, they're just, I don't know, they're fickle. They know that they can go in weeds and lose, you know, whatever is trying to like hurt them or harm them, because that's kind of how they see this. You know, it's a threat to them. It's not like, oh, let's go get caught. It feels really good and it's fun. You know, they're always trying to figure out ways, and especially older, bigger fish, they are really smart. You know?
Okay, so it's a little dark in here, but my camera actually died halfway through what I was saying in the last video, so I cut a little bit off of that last video there. But that wraps up my how to fish from a dock video. I ended up fishing about another half an hour off the docks and I didn't catch anything. So thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I will see you next week with a new John's Fishing Channel video. See ya.